What a year it has been. 2020 was not a good year, and it also wasn't a great year for movies, but there were still some good ones, and there are still enough to do a top 10 list with some honorable mentions. I will be counting down today my top 10 favourite movies of 2020. These aren't necessarily the best movies, these are just movies I've seen. There's a lot of movies I have not seen that may also end up on the list in the future, but these are my top 10 as of now, the end of 2020, and I'm just glad this year is over. Hopefully 2021 can be better. Hopefully, we don't know. But still, I still have my 10, and I also do have some honourable mentions that did not make it on the list, but were close, and those movies are His House, an interesting horror film that was very different to what I expected, and showed horror in a different way. Onward, a solid Pixar movie, but not the only Pixar movie I'll be talking about today. The Vast of Night, a very interesting, mysterious 50s classic mystery. Mank. I didn't enjoy watching this film, but I think David Fincher directed a very, very good film, which is why it at least deserves an honorable mention for me. And The Gentleman. Very, very difficult not to put this on my list. There were 11 movies I really want to put on this list, and The Gentleman was one of them, but it didn't quite make it on there. Now we're going to move on to my actual top 10 of the year. Make sure before, though, you let me know your favourite movies of 2020 down below, and also I have a link to my letterboxd in the description where this list may update at any time on there. So, cracking off, my number 10 is Borat subsequent movie film. This movie was the long-awaited sequel to the really funny Borat. What makes this movie funny is that it's just a great time in the pandemic. It sheds some light into it. Sacha Baron Cohen's commitment to this role, what he does, and also the young actress that goes around as his daughter. It's so funny because it's real. It's real, unadulterated humour, and it's the exact same humour I love. And this movie, I think, could put a smile on anyone's face. It'll make you cringe, awkward, and expose things that you weren't expecting about the general public, which is always the most fun to watch. Number 9 is Bad Education, featuring one of the best performances I've ever seen from Hugh Jackman, and a brilliant, riveting true story. And I found this movie really interesting. It had an interesting set of twists and turns. It was a marvellous drama, had some very excellent performances, and what they were able to do was really present this character in an interesting way. Do you root for him? Do you understand why he's doing what he's doing? And is he a good or bad person? And discussing these points was very interesting to me, and Bad Education I found to be a brilliant drama. Coming in at number 8 is The Devil All the Time, a Netflix film starring a lot of actors. Even though I found the first half of this movie with all the different storylines a bit tedious to watch, the last half to me was completely riveting and brought together these themes of faith and violence, and when mixing the two together can cause very bad effects, and I really, really love this. This movie had great performances and was a grim look on faith and violence, and I really loved it. It's not an easygoing movie, it's not a movie everyone's going to enjoy, but it certainly is a movie that I really appreciated it, and the more I think about it, the better it gets. Coming in at number 7 is going to be The Invisible Man, a very intense horror film that, in my opinion, had a brilliant performance and also added the sci-fi aspect into it as well. This movie had a great concept that I didn't think wasted its potential on. It's not a movie I can see myself going back to many times, but it is an interesting movie to look at and notice where the small hints are, and how it uses the horror and suspense build-up without even showing anything on screen. At number 6 is Palm Springs. This is easily the most fun movie of the entire year. This movie is an absolute blast from start to finish, taking that Groundhog Day-like concept and doing something really creative with it. Andy Samberg continues to be an hilarious character in this film, like he is in some of the other things he has done. And this movie had just renewed energy and was just a piece of fun. It had an awesome chase aspect to it as well. Just the storytelling, the editing, everything put together in this film made it one of the most fun movies of the year. And it's not one of the ultimate best movies of the year, it's not one of the most unique, it's just one of the most fun, one of the most light-hearted, and one of the best written. Coming in at number 5 is Spike Lee's The Five Bloods. The Five Bloods was a very interesting war film that showed the effects afterwards. It also featured one of the last performances from Chadwick Boseman, and I find myself really wrapped up in this film. The first half an hour I wasn't a big fan of, but as this movie progressed, it became so intense, and using real-life footage, it was a very realistic presentation, just like what Spike Lee did with some of his other films. I think he did a really, really good job here, presenting something difficult to watch, but makes you think about what you watched. Number 4 is The Trial of the Chicago 7. This movie I had such a good time with. This true case story had some brilliant thing. It showed the manipulation behind the court and how they manipulated this entire story, and had some great performances, including Sacha Baron Cohen, who stole this movie with a lot of great humour. Andy Sorkin did a brilliant job writing and directing this, and I think it's personally the best written movie of the whole year. I had a brilliant time watching this film. I think it's fast-paced, I think it's riveting, but the main point, it kept my attention and kept me wanting to see how they were going to get out of this and learning about the incident that led them to it. Number 3 is Pixar's Soul, released on Disney Plus on Christmas Day, and I had a great time watching it. Onward, to me, was still good, but it didn't match up to what Pixar should be, but Soul did. This movie had the magic, it had the world building, it had the emotion, it had the messages, and it had the wonderful animation, and it had 2 great characters. I really, really love this film. I think it's just exactly what a Pixar film should be, and captures that just heartwarming emotion, and gives you a message that anyone can relate to. It's extremely funny, has interesting ideas. It's familiar for Pixar in terms of the way it's made and the world building it has, but it's able to be unique because of its message and because of Pixar's wonderful flair for brilliant thematic storytelling. Number 2 is the only new release I saw at the cinema this year, and that was Tenet. Yes, Tenet is the only film that released in 2020 that I saw in the theatre. I only saw 2 other movies in 2020 in the cinema, and they were both films that came out beforehand. I watched 1917 in January, and I watched The Empire Strikes Back for its 40th anniversary, and then I watched Tenet when it came out. And Christopher Nolan provides another epic, complex, interesting film with, even though very weak characterization, was able to make up for it in a very intimidating and exciting plot, and a really intriguing narrative, and a brilliant final act and last half that to me was so well done and had my mind blown. I really loved Tenet. The first act as well. A lot of the movies on this list, the first act weren't great, but as soon as I got into them, they became better, and Tenet is one of those movies. It's complex, and I can't wait to rewatch it, and I'm not sure if it will go up or down when I rewatch it, but it stays as one of my favourite movies of the year, for the fact that I actually got to experience this in the cinema. It was a big, loud, epic experience, and it was one of the big blockbusters of this year that I think was definitely worth watching. My number 1 film was easily my favourite movie of 2020. Nothing even came close to beating this film in my list, and my number 1 favourite film of the whole year is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. If you've seen my review for this movie, you probably knew it was going to be at number 1. Most likely you haven't seen that review, but I absolutely adored this film from beginning to end. Charlie Kaufman's direction and writing makes this movie so complex, so confusing, but also so ambient and meaningful. Everything's seeped within this movie. The opening scene is 20-minute dialogue in a car, speaking about nothing about what the film is about, just speaking about these characters' thoughts and feelings, and then when it gets insane, it gets mind-boggling. You are like this for the entire movie and don't know what the hell is going on, and it is brilliant. And when it ended, I was in complete awe. Something I had not seen before, something that really spoke to me in many ways. I'm still interpreting what this film is about. I still want to go back and rewatch it and analyze it. It's one of the movies that's just stuck in my head. I understand why it's divisive. I understand why some people may love it and some people may hate it. But for me, this was just such a well-directed film where every single moment I wanted to pay such close attention to. But at the same time, I did enjoy watching it because I was so fascinated by the filmmaking on display and how these characters were connecting to one another and how the entire story may mean certain things. I'm not going to spoil anything about the story in this review, but my, I'm Thinking of Ending Things blew me away, and it was the one film of 2020 that I genuinely absolutely adored. Guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your favourite movies of 2020 are down below. I will be also doing my favourite TV shows of the year, because there was a lot of really great TV shows as well that I really want to talk about, so I will be doing that list as well soon. But yeah, guys, let me know what your favourite films of 2020 are. This wasn't a great year for films, but there were still some worth mentioning. 2019 was a brilliant year for movies, and 2020 wasn't great, but I still had a lot of good time watching a lot of films this year, a lot of ones I hadn't seen, and these are my top 10. Let me know what yours are down below. And of course, thanks for watching, and goodbye.